Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Smooth Thrills Radio Hour. I'm your host, Jason Rutledge. First off, a big thank you to all of you who stopped by to check out our interview with John Putch. It was super fun to do, and we really look forward to doing more interview episodes in the future. What did you guys think of it? You can drop us a message on the Instagram or Facebook, or, of course, you can always email us at autopilot@smooththrillsradiohour.com. We'd love to hear from you. So, this is the final installment in Series 2 of the show, and it's a real departure for us since we're talking about a movie that, well, at least at the time of this recording, doesn't exist. It's Jim Shooter's movie treatment for Dazzler, and it's a movie that got surprisingly close to being made, but sadly just didn't get there. Nathan, Katie, and Joe are back to puzzle over this pile of movie madness, so let's get on with the show. But first, we should introduce the guest of honor.
Gene, let me introduce you to Dazzler.
Who's that? The inevitable girlfriend?
That is the thing I kept thinking of going over all of this is what was Marvel Comics' cocaine budget at the time that they were doing this thing? Because it had to have been enormous. Had to have been.
Marvel Comics?
Yes.
What,
them too.
So was this actually a Marvel thing, or was it something that somebody was looking to do themselves and then take to Marvel?
Both.
Oh,
and neither
fair enough.
at the same time.
And I mean, you can tell that when you read it.
It's trippy like that.
Well, how established was Jim Shooter at the time?
Oh shit, we forgot to introduce the episode. Hang on.
I thought we were just talking and then we're going to do that.
That's usually what we do.
Yeah, we kind of were already just talking about the pivotal things in the episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Did you hear about that tiger that escaped from the zoo?
Oh, fuck, I didn't. What about it?
He was chasing some children and he didn't eat them.
Holy
so
shit.
That's good. But he did go to a pajama store and didn't try anything on, just left.
Cool story, bro.
So there's a tiger on the loose that is not into pajamas, or at least trying on pajamas, so... Oh.
Anyway, welcome back, everyone, to the Smooth Thrills Radio Hour, coming to you from Old East Dallas.
Thank you.
This is kind of a weird episode for us in that we're talking about something that doesn't exist. We're talking about a movie that should have been made but never was. Maybe it was on an alternate timeline, we'll never know, and that was Dazzler.
I'm ready.
Why are you wearing 3D glasses now?
This is the wrong episode. I'm sorry.
Jesus, Nathan.
Well, let him do that.
So,
this is a visual medium.
It is.
True.
Yes.
And
podcasting is a visual medium. Yeah, thanks, Joe. So you guys, I sent you all the 12-page treatment, which is scanned off of Jim Shooter's original. You had a read of that. First impression, one word. What'd you think about this thing?
Why?
That's a good one. Joe?
Dazzling.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Another good one. A little bit about the backstory on how any of this even came close to happening. Early in 1979,
cocaine was invented.
Apparently, and enthusiastically tested
by Jason Cocaine.
Yes. We can all thank Mr. Cocaine for his efforts.
Which is perfect timing because Jack
He
Palance...
left his soap out to dry in the sun. When he came back, it was all flaky, and he thought, well, I'm not going to do that.
But anyway, two of the big shots at Marvel Comics decided they wanted to create a superhero disco character with the hopes of selling it to a movie company. Kind of like how they'd done with the Archies. Well, I don't think the Archies were necessarily created as a property that way, but they saw some dollar signs coming and thought, let's cash in on the disco craze. Let's have a comic going that we can pitch to a movie studio and get some of that sweet movie money coming in. And remember, this is after, or was it just before or after the first Superman movie?
It would have been after. That was in
just
78.
After. So they got Jim Shooter, who was editor-in-chief at the time, gave him this assignment. He gave it to two of his writers, Tom DeFalco and a guy named John Romita Jr. So they came up with this Dazzler character, gave her the weird superpower she had to, I think it was convert sound energy into light energy and do disco light shows. That, as far as I know, I've never read the comics. I don't think that's what it was.
Do dazzling things.
Dazzling things, yes. They came up with a name for it. They gave her a debut in X-Men number 130, and then nothing happened. Couldn't get it sold. Until later in 79, Shooter gets called up to the Big Shot's offices, where they presented this to Neil Bogart of Casablanca Records and Filmworks. And they pitched it as a half-hour animated special, and then told Shooter, okay, we need a treatment for this. How would you approach this? We want Harlan Ellison to write something for this.
Wow.
Shooter, probably wise decision, decided, you know what, we probably can't get Harlan Ellison. Doesn't seem likely that he'll be into this kind of thing. So he took it upon himself to do it over the course of a weekend. And that's where this 12-page treatment came from. Shooter and the Marvel execs presented this treatment to Neil Bogart, who said, we can't do this as a special. This is a feature film, or something like that. I don't know what the guy's speaking voice sounded like, so I'm kind of guessing there.
No, well, no. But anyway.
And it very well could have been, except that, and Nathan, you know the history of Casablanca Records better than I do. Neil Bogart did not last much longer after that. I think he was having health problems, or?
Yeah. I think it was cancer, but he died in 82 because that was the last roundup of Casablanca Records as far as like a recording company, as far as putting out records. They kind of stopped soon after that. And I got to put it in KISS context.
Of course.
Their last album at Casablanca was Creatures of the Night, and it was dedicated to Neil Bogart, who had just passed away a few months prior.
Wow.
And Joyce Bogart was his wife, who kind of owned the rest of it and just kind of shipped stuff off to either Mercury Records or other Polygrammed owned companies.
So one of the Casablanca Records stipulations is if they were going to be involved, then whatever movie this is had to have speaking parts for people who were on their roster, which meant it had to have Rodney Dangerfield, it had to have Robin Williams, had to have Cher, Donna Summer, Lenny and Squiggy, and the Village People, and of course KISS. So those were the parameters that were given to Jim Shooter to try to make that work.
Okay, I thought that was completely random, that he was just like,
Not at all.
Get the Village People in here. They're going to be great villains.
I'm glad it has context to it, because when you read it not knowing that, you're just like, where did they get this group of people? Like, where did they get the idea of it?
It's hard to imagine being handed this project and thinking, yeah, I can make that work. Sure. Right? I mean, come on.
Well, I didn't know that he'd been handed, like, that was like the mandate that he had to go and take all these. I knew they were all Casablanca properties, but I thought that was just him being creative and going, fuck it, we're just going to go for the gold and utilize everybody within the wheelhouse.
I mean, I guess it could have been worse. They could have stipulated that Robin Williams and Rodney Dangerfield be in the Avengers somehow, which would have been even more awkward, I suppose. But
God, Dangerfield would have been a great Jarvis.
I was thinking Iron Man, but okay, Jarvis. That could have worked too.
Oh, are you kidding?
Well, obviously, Robin Williams could have played the Beast without any makeup.
Oh, that's true. And we were talking about, Nathan and I were talking about this earlier, because they line out all of these parts for the Casablanca crowd, but there's no stipulation over who the Avengers are going to be. So who would they have cast in these roles, given it was 1979? So you're thinking Tony Stark, okay, Eric Estrada, he's available, right? Get him. Or
Brad Davis, because he just came off of Midnight Express.
Yeah, okay. Dick Van Patten, I think, wasn't working at the time.
Oh, you got to have the Van Pattens. You got to have Tim Van Patten in there, too. Yeah, that's possible. Joyce Van Patten could have been in there.
Sure. Scarlet Witch, they could have gotten...
Lena Horne.
Stephanie Powers.
Oh.
Yeah, or they could have just gone, witchy poo with it and got that actor.
Well, there actually was one name solidly attached to the movie, and that was Bo Derek. Casablanca had to bow out. Marvel owned all the rights. Casablanca had no stake in it whatsoever. So Marvel decided to push forward, and they took this treatment to the Cannes Film Festival in 1980 to try to get some investors involved in this thing. They got a meeting with Bo Derek, who wanted to play Dazzler really, really, really bad. once the word of that got out, there was a bidding war got started over who could take this over. You know how
10,
this works.
10 had already been released at that point? Okay.
Bo Derek was really wanting to be involved. Unfortunately, she demanded that her husband direct it.
Oh, John Derek. Oy.
Yeah.
And then get a Tarzan the Ape Man on us.
I actually have a photo here of the People magazine cover with Bo Derek
I was just
and
looking
John
at
Derek
it.
carrying the stack of Marvel magazines around in Cannes Film Festival. Once Derek was involved, they really wanted to go for it, and they decided that a screenplay had to be written, but they wanted an actual Hollywood screenwriter to do it. He says, Marvel commissioned a screenplay by Leslie Stevens. Stevens ignored I'm quoting him here. Stevens ignored what I had written completely and wrote a piece of crap that defies description. Says the guy who wrote this treatment right here in front of us. So I am dying to find this script and figure out what it was about. He called it moronic.
Do you think some of the things said about it, though, could have been the animosity for how they were treating it? Like the fact that they wanted to take it and then do what they wanted with it instead of allowing them to have
I think a lot of it was probably from Shooter's own description. A lot of that just comes from his personality.
Oh, fair enough.
That is one thing. It really read like a comic of that era. Like it doesn't seem like
very much
it would transfer to screen well at all. Like in the same sense that they would use the word like blast or blast it. You know, it's just not going to sound as good, if you're on screen.
Yes.
Blast it all.
Well, that's the same criticism I had over the Watchmen movie. Was a lot of this stuff does not translate from the page to the screen as well. Like all the musical cues just don't. It doesn't work quite as well. This one,
I mean, you're still taking a comic and making it a movie. There's going to be a disconnect there no matter how you do it.
No matter what. Yeah.
Have you watched the TV show yet?
I have.
Well, I just think the TV show did a good job at bridging the gap between, yes, it is coming from a comic, but it's still, it did it better than the film did in that regard. Because like the film took allowances and changed things because it would have been more difficult to present it on screen, whereas the show, they just did it. They were like, you know what, we're just going to take what's straight from the pages.
And as an episodic format, it probably works much better in terms of adapting.
Well, it's taking it's its own source material, but it still has things from the comic because it's not the actual comic in a TV show. It's a continuation afterwards.
That's what I was kind of like. I always thought that would be a good idea with making a comic a TV show is doing each issue an episode. Yeah. Makes sense. That's
they've never really done that. Yeah.
No, I forgot his name. The guy that he did like Daredevil, the first Daredevil movie. Was there another? No, I don't know.
Well, there's the TV show.
He has 3 names. I can't remember it. He had said he was supposed to do Preacher originally, and his pitch was doing it an episode per issue or an issue per episode. And I was like, that's fucking genius. That's wonderful.
Since it was originally structured that way to begin with, yeah.
Yeah, and then, we got what we got.
Yeah.
Actually, I take that back. Tales from the Crypt is that, but but that's different type of comic book.
Yes. Yeah. It's not an ongoing.
I have a question.
Stories.
Well, yes.
Because wasn't Creepshow was a comic eventually, or was it a comic first?
No, it was written for the movie, but they made a comic book.
But I knew there was comics of it. I just didn't know which existed first.
No, it was just an homage to EC and scripted as such.
So anyway, they got Bo Derek attached. They got a script, couldn't get it to go anywhere, mostly because John Derek had to be involved and no one wanted to work with him. So that ended Bo Derek's involvement. Then they tried to get Daryl Hannah to do it. Still couldn't get anybody to buy into it, and the whole thing just sort of fizzled out and died.
Well, she wasn't even established at that point. So
It should be noted that the Dazzler comic itself took off. It was the very first Marvel comic sold direct to comic book shops as an exclusive. The first issue sold, I think it was 428,000 copies. And
I got my issue at the Ritchie Supermarket.
And it would go on to sell 160,000 a month on the regular, which was 60,000 more than Superman was doing at the time. Pretty popular comic. They just never could get the movie made. And maybe that's for the best, because if you've read this treatment, it's nuts.
But the thing is not every comic book character exists to have a film.
Well, this one
there are a lot of
there
are a lot of comic book but there are a lot of comic book characters that I feel like people would be like, oh, I would love to see a movie, but it's not going to do well.
Well, I mean, if you run
whether
down
this guy wrote it or not.
page 1, when we have our cast of characters, Cher as the Witch Queen, Donna Summer as the Queen of Fire, Kiss as the Dread Knights, Robin Williams as Tristan, Rodney Dangerfield as Dewey Cheatham and Hal and Lord Chaos. This would have been his first movie, too. And they're
Not his first movie, but
No.
Projectionist is his first movie in 1970. But anyway. But he hadn't done Caddyshack yet.
Right.
And that was the rebirth.
At the Village People
Wait.
as the Stompers, Lenny and Squiggy as the Jesters. They don't name
Now,
the
when
actors.
this
They
is,
just call
I
them
was
Lenny
going to
and
say,
Squiggy.
they did mean like Laverne and
Because
Shirley,
they did
Lenny
the
and
album
Squiggy.
Lenny and the Squigtones for Casablanca. That's why.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, I was
First-
curious about that whenever I read it. I was like, okay, we're
Well, even
casting
weirder,
fictional characters for fictional
even
characters.
weirder than that, right after that is, and Disco Dazzler, the Amazing Spider-Man, and the Avengers as themselves.
themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe they're getting the ones that are in
What?
Times Square that just walk around all day long.
Yes, that might be. Yeah, Times Square. I mean, you're going to be over there by Studio 54. Makes
Would have been
sense.
totally appropriate. The story begins with Dazzler in the middle of a performance getting whisked away via Secret Wars style, just completely into a different reality. Same happens to our poor Avengers. And the description of the Avengers they give will tell you a little bit about just the compromises Marvel was willing to make to get
I love
something
that
on
it's
screen.
Anthony Stark instead of Tony
Clad in
Stark.
his solar-powered armor. So they could go that far.
An invincible modern knight. It's just ridiculous.
The Falcon, who is actually Sam Wilson, a black teacher from Harlem.
Like, teacher. Like, what?
Just that's as far as the description goes.
Well,
The,
Gene Simmons was a teacher in Harlem, but he wasn't black. Anyway.
the Scarlet Witch born Wanda Frank, which I don't think was the right name.
No.
The Beast. Mutant Hank McCoy is furry and bestial, but extremely intelligent. He's crazy.
They need to get Kelsey Grammer to play him.
The Wasp, Janet Van Dyne Pym, who is given a serum that enables her to shrink to insect size and sprout wings. Very much a lovable scatterbrain. That's it.
I love
That's,
that they
that's
call
all
her
we get for the Avengers.
Bless her heart. That poor character has been like shit on most of their
Yeah.
existence, which is sad.
So the Avengers vanish. Then Peter Parker vanishes, changes his
Also-
costume in the middle of a vortex tunnel or something. And this part I really loved. He lands to find the Avengers and Dazzler protecting a guy in a regular business suit who's standing nearby, looking rather uncomfortable in his typical Rodney Dangerfield way. Okay.
So
I'm all right now, but last week I was in rough shape, you know?
Interesting. Okay.
I just want to know if Mary Jane ended up getting mugged or not. Because I like how it was like she was joking about being mugged.
We'll never know.
yeah.
Never know. Let's see. They questioned Rodney Dangerfield as Cheatham. Goes into the whole history of the Great Disaster, which had something to do with casino gambling and frozen yogurt.
And nobody wrote it down.
So civilization coming down to two feudal states, Upper Hatton and Lower Hatton, is a pretty typical New York attitude to have about this whole thing, isn't it? Nowhere else could the last civilization possibly exist except Manhattan. Governed by the Queen of Fire and the Witch Queen. Remind you all, turns out at the end to simply be fighting because they both want Tristan.
Robin
Well, that's all
Williams.
women
Which
are
is
good
kinda
for,
gross.
fighting over men.
Oh, sure. But Robin Williams?
And he can't have who he wants, so he's just like, oh, well, and picks up a flower for the Fire Queen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But someday a Sun Queen will come with her invincible knights to unite the two queendoms of Manhattan. How is there
I
not a
love
TV show
Queendom.
called Queendoms of Manhattan right now?
That would be money in the bank.
That's fantastic.
Well,
This would
now
be-
there will be.
You doing it, Joe?
The floor is going to take it.
You taking it, Joe?
I'm really, like, I don't understand why they used the Three Stooges thing.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't
I
make
don't
sense
know.
to me. It's
Like,
not,
I
it's
think
not
he was
funny
just
in the
screwing
context.
around. He just,
Like, maybe
this
it was
could
a
just be due to
placeholder
him.
name?
Maybe.
It could be. I mean, he is oddly specific about some of the details, though, also, because the fiery garbed unicorn mounted warriors and spearmen and chariots made from old VWs.
Yeah. And then there was the horseman riding the lizard.
Lizard-drawn battle wagons made from old Datsun pickup trucks.
I mean, I would do that.
I was confused because he described it as horsemen riding the lizard horses, whatever. I can't remember. It was
Yeah.
lizard something. But
you had it
so
right.
were
Lizard
the
horses.
horsemen like dudes that ride horses, or were they like actual like mutant horse people? That
I
were
take it
riding
as like the
lizards
four
around?
horsemen. Like that's how I took it.
It's open to
Horsemen of
interpretation.
the apocalypse. Yeah.
It's
I
open to
think that would be pretty killer to have these weird mutant horse people riding around on lizards.
It's like Hell Comes to Horsetown or something.
Ooh. Nice.
That was good.
He also
That was
seems to
nice.
have something out for Lenny and Squiggy because he refers to them both the same way. So
Hello.
in their introductions. Also nearby is the Queen's jester, Lenny, who is not funny. Not at all, though he tries and tries.
Fucking shit, he's not funny.
Same thing with brought before the Queen of Fire, which includes her personal royal guard, the Stompers, her totally unfunny jester, Squiggy. What did he have against Lenny and Squiggy?
He didn't. He just knew that combined they would be funny. But so maybe
Put it on my
at the
guys.
time there was some kind of spin-off idea for the two characters in a show. And he was like, you know what? This is how I'm going to put my 2 cents in.
So Nathan, since you are a resident Kiss expert, I had to ask you about this bit where they say that Kiss is using their already established cosmic superpowers. How does this jibe with the actual superpowers the members of Kiss had?
Kiss already had 2 Marvel comic books, 2 Marvel super specials prior to this. And of course, Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, where they introduce the talisman.
Isn't that film the film that got you to fall in love with visual effects,
Which one?
Jason? Kiss
Meets the
of
Phantom?
Park. Yeah.
No.
Oh.
It did cause him to fall in love with Ace Frehley's black stunt double, though.
Was he from Harlem?
Was he a
I
teacher?
don't know. Was he
Where
the
he
guy
taught?
from Harlem?
Oh. So Gene Simmons, super strength, ability to breathe fire. Paul Stanley fires rays from his starred eyes.
That's all in Kiss Meets the Phantom.
Ace Frehley can teleport.
Yeah, he's Space Ace.
Peter Criss has cat-like agility,
Yeah, he's a cat.
pretty much. Okay. So that pretty much... So
this is giving you stuff that you needed to read prior to it. Like you have homework prior to watching this movie of having to read the Kiss comics.
I mentioned this because they run down the superpowers.
He's got laser whiskers.
They attribute superpowers to the Village People also, which I don't remember in the actual Village People. The motorcycle cop has a nightstick that's charged with crackling
he's
energy.
got a nightstick, all right.
Oh. The construction worker has a jackhammer that can create
He's
small
also
earthquakes.
got a jackhammer.
The cowboy twirls an unbreakable lasso that he controls as if it were alive.
So he's almost like
And
Wonder
he'll
Woman.
force somebody to tell the truth, yeah.
The Indian has a tomahawk that cuts through anything.
What about footbells?
Don't know.
Okay, because that's his superpower within the group. Footbells.
The GI has a sidearm that fires mystic, fiery, laser-like blasts. And the Leatherman is super strong and wields an unbreakable chain.
Of fools.
Oh boy. And I'm finding it kind of difficult to imagine Rodney Dangerfield in this movie at all.
Oh, are you kidding?
Okay, so how would Rodney Dangerfield say this line? But fear not, for you are the Sun Queen of the prophecy, and it must be fulfilled. Are you serious?
Oh,
Do it, Nathan, do it.
But fear not, okay? With a hat like that, I bet you get a free bowl of soup. It looks good on you, though.
Or giving him a line like, fool, Cheatham says, when we're supreme, you'll share in the spoils.
Okay.
So then he joins hands with the other 2 Rodney Dangerfields, and they start becoming Lord Chaos.
It's a trifecta of Dangerfields.
Power Dangerfields.
So one of them, which one is Wally Sparks, though?
I don't know.
I'd like to meet him.
He's not the one I want.
I kind of get the impression that Jim Shooter knew nothing about Rodney Dangerfield at all when he wrote this and put him in that part.
Other than he's a comedian.
I feel like a lot of it is maybe he didn't necessarily want these actors in there, but he was being forced to,
Right.
and that might be why there was the comment about Squiggy and things like that.
Yeah,
He's like, I have to put all these people in here, and I don't want it that way.
Shooter was well known for being very possessive and controlling of everything that was going on his watch as editor-in-chief.
Well, that's most of the Marvel editor-in-chief.
Well, he had some cause for it. I mean, he was at 14 years old, he got his first job writing Superman comics. Superman and Supergirl, and later on Legion of
Superboy?
Superheroes.
Oh.
No, They didn't give him Superdog or any of that stuff.
Oh, they didn't get crypto?
So he opted out of New York University to work for Marvel, quit after a few weeks because of some financial problems. But the kid was like 20 or 21 when he became an editor at Marvel Comics. And Marvel had been chewing through editors, and especially editor-in-chief. They go through 5 in about 6 years before Shooter took over in 76 as their editor-in-chief. Or 78, January of 78. He was assistant editor in 76 and a writer under the editor-in-chief. So he had some street cred going into it. But he also ran a very tight ship. On one hand, he fought for rights for the creators. He fought for them to get better health benefits and to own their creations. On the other hand, he was kind of a difficult guy to work for. I have a part of a memo here that he wrote to his editors in 1984 from Shooter to editors. Effective immediately. Start doing good comics. I realize this directive reflects a substantial departure from previous company policy, but please try to comply. That's it. How'd you like to work for that guy? Sounds like fun. Subtle. So there might have been a little disdain on Jim Shooter's end for the task he was given here. I could see that.
Do you think that's because he sat down on something? Oh, disdain on his end. I'm sorry.
Disdain.
Thank you.
Who put a blueberry here?
Now I got disdain on my pants.
I want to know if they would have had a role for Dangerfield's doctor, Dr. Vinny Boombots.
I don't know.
No?
Dangerfield might have been in a position to negotiate that.
He could have played Lord Chaos.
We get to the bit, where the two evil queens realize that they have something in common, which is their mutual disdain again, mutual hatred for Tristan. And that brings them together. The two evil queens come together as one to fight Lord Chaos, I guess.
I feel like that's code.
That what happened? I don't know.
Maybe.
We get stuff like, no, screams Tristan, threatening to smash Cheatham with a big rock. You do it, and I'll clonk Cheatham.
They did say clonk.
He says clonk 3 times.
That's pretty cool.
So, okay, this was in 79. Then he was editor-in-chief in 76. So he was like 24 when he wrote this?
76. No, he would have been, if he was 14 in 1966.
Okay.
52.
I was just taking you saying that he
was in his 20s.
At 21.
Yeah, I can't do math. You know that. So he would have been 26. Is that right? No.
Sure.
A little bit older than that. Something like that. Somebody will figure it out. Email it to us. I don't know. So Dazzler and the Avengers put an end to the war. They kill Rodney Dangerfield, I guess.
Or did he die on stage?
Okay. We have Cheatham, Dewey, and Howe, it turns out, are a law firm, and so naturally are acolytes of chaos.
And what the fuck? Why do they need lawyers in this land of ruin?
Don't know.
Like, it was so bizarre.
Everyone
Whenever
needs
it's like,
lawyers.
I have to confer with my counsel. Like in the very first. What?
So they defeat Lord Chaos, and then Lenny finds a natural partner in Squiggy, and for the first time in their lives together, they're funny. Cheatham, Dewey, and Howe are put to work as kindergarten teachers to learn what true chaos is. And that's pretty much the end of this thing.
I like how he says that the two of them got together to be funny and then lays a really shitty gag on us with them becoming kindergarten teachers because that's true chaos.
But that's how comics, and I'm not defending this at all because it is trash, but it is very reminiscent of the comics that existed back then. They always had that like lesson you learn in the afternoon after school, like an after school special. That's what I'm looking for. Like it has that childness to it. So
yeah, I don't know if we
moral code, you mean?
Oh, that was something that came around with after the He-Man
code.
cartoons especially started coming out. They had said we have to have some kind of educational message to offset all this violence.
Filmation always did that. They did that on Fat Albert.
it just has that after school special feel to it.
G.I.
Like,
Joe and knowing is half the battle.
tying
and
it
all that
up
stuff.
and going.
Yeah.
In today's episode,
We learned a little something about friendship.
and Rodney Dangerfield.
the friends we made along the way.
Exactly.
So Marvel had they've been doing the Spider-Man TV show, I think, already by now,
Yeah.
and it
And of course,
repackaged
the
a lot of
Hulk.
it as movies. And the Hulk, yes. I don't know if they'd already done the kind of half-assed Doctor Strange movie. I think
That would have been the
When did the Fantastic
Captain
Four movie
America.
happen?
Captain
the weird
America was
one?
79. Doctor Strange was 79 as well.
when did the weird Fantastic Four one happen?
Oh, the Roger
90s.
Corman one?
90s,
That was
okay,
94, yeah.
But there was a cartoon version of Fantastic Four with the little robot thing.
Oh yeah.
That had
Was
I
been
don't know
going
if
on.
it was that
in the
early.
90s?
I don't think it was either. I'm trying to think. I'm thinking it was around the same time they were doing the Spider-Man and Friends thing with.
Yeah, that was like...
That was the best one. I love that one.
That was like early 80s. That was...
Iceman,
And Fire. What's her
Jason
name?
Robards. Yeah.
Firestorm.
Yes, Fire.
Howie Long. I just see the light smile, light smirk.
I thought you were about to say I can see the light dying in their eyes right now as we keep
No, that was
talking
me
about this.
sitting in a screening that I was drugged to by a friend of Firestorm.
Was that Dewey, Cheatham, and Howie Long?
Oh, there you go. God, that
Cheatham,
would have sucked if that was the third Stooge, Howie Long. That would have been horrible.
Third Stooge.
That's worse than Joe Besser.
Had this been made, I have no idea what anybody would have thought of this thing.
I don't think it's that implausible. I mean, of that time frame. I mean, if you look at like Can't Stop the Music with the Village People and Kiss Me's the Phantom.
Yeah.
And of that time, that kind of wasn't that big to put like popular musicians and things in things to help promote it or pull an audience, maybe, things like that. I mean, that still happens now. I don't know why I'm saying it's only relevant to back then, but it seemed to, yeah.
It was more glaring back then.
It was, absolutely. They were putting
like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band movie. I mean, that's just...
They were very clearly putting people into movies that had no business being in the movies just to promote them.
Although Donna Summer's great, and Thank God It's Friday.
Yes, but that's a better fit for Donna Summer than this thing.
Yes. But
I don't know if I can place her.
The Wiz had music in it.
I don't mean just having music in it.
Yeah,
That it did.
And nobody beat him.
Well, no, I mean, that is Diana Ross and Michael Jackson. That was always a musical to begin with. I mean, that version of The Wizard of Oz was.
I know, I was just trying to name something.
I don't know.
Like, I want to participate.
No, it fits in that same time frame.
In the conversation.
78, so this would have been 79.
Yeah.
Problem is, by the time the ball would have gotten rolling, as far as Casablanca Records and Filmworks, they were almost done at this point.
How many movies did they end up putting out over the course of their run?
They did Midnight Express, Thank God It's Friday, The Deep was a big one.
That was Casablanca?
Yeah.
Oh,
Donna
wow.
Summer's on the soundtrack album. And Peter Goober was
Did you say Peter
very
Goober?
instrumental in that production.
And then later, his brother Hans Gruber would be in Die Hard.
Yeah.
Right.
They weren't that close.
He didn't make it
as far
to
as I
Die
know.
Hard 2, though.
Was FM on Casablanca?
No, that wasn't. That's a good reference, though. That's a perfect one, actually, for that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Same year, it's all music, basically.
The Way of the World, I don't think, was Casablanca.
The one with Harvey Keitel?
Yeah.
No, it was not. I think that was prior to this. I want to say that was like 77
Richard prior to this.
or 76.
Mm.
It was Richard Pryor.
So they had a pretty diverse group of movies that they were putting out, sounds like.
Yes, they did.
Because, well, I'm just saying to think that...
No, they did, yeah.
For a
No,
company
it
that
wasn't
had-
all Donna Summer-infused vehicles like you would think they would do.
No, well, I'm just saying for a company
And
that had
they didn't do Can't Stop the Music, so...
I'm just saying for a company that did like half a dozen movies to have Midnight Express thrown into that mix.
Well, it was Casablanca Records initially, Neil Bogart's company, and then he fused with Peter Goober and they made it Casablanca Records and Filmworks. And the idea was to tackle on as many subjects as possible, but I think they had success where they didn't expect to have it. Like they backed the wrong horses, so to speak. Like they thought The Deep was pretty successful.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Jaws, obviously. Didn't have that same level of success, which is what they wanted. But Midnight Express had a ton of critical praise behind it.
Sure.
But yeah, that's a kind of a left field idea for them, other than the fact that Giorgio Moroder did the score for it. And he was, of course, was with them. But they also had Miko Minardo was on their label. So they could have had him do music for this. They might have had him do the music for Dazzler.
Was Giorgio's Metropolis Casablanca? Or no, that was...
No, because they did that in 84.
Okay.
And Casablanca had already collapsed by that point. So So
I really love that
I don't
version.
think what
That's a
record
good
company
version.
if that was it A&M?
Yeah,
That is a great version. That was my introduction to it as a kid, watching that. Yeah.
Did anyone else find it kind of weird that there's no musical numbers in this treatment for Dazzler?
No. I mean, it mentions that she was at she was doing a concert.
Yeah, at the very beginning,
So-
yeah.
Maybe he just felt it was a given. That
Well,
he
no.
would just,
Because
Well,
it's
then
a
there's some
record
numbers in
studio
there.
that's doing it, or
yeah, like why bother writing it in there?
Why wasn't Howard the Duck in
Yeah,
this?
he would have been perfect.
If nothing else,
And
I
that
would
was
think
like
this one,
the character's heyday was
Yeah.
back then too.
that is true.
did the
And
character
he'd
ever
already-
really have a heyday?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Kiss's first appearance in a comic book was in a Howard
Yeah.
the Duck.
I just think of the weird movie.
Great movie.
It's a weird movie.
It's a weirdly
It's still
great
weird. I
movie.
mean, weird things can be great. I'm not.
The comics were great. I love the comics.
I mean, I
Yes,
like Howard
they
the
were.
Duck.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever saw a single one of the comics. I don't know how aware I was of Howard the Duck before the movie.
The only
And
thing
he like ran for president. Like there was like this jokey kind of Howard the Duck running for president in like 76. That was a big
of course,
deal.
if he did that now,
The
he'd
only
get
Howard
things
the
in.
all
Duck-
kinds of posters.
The only
Yeah,
Howard the
maybe.
Duck I'm
You run the
familiar
risk.
with is when he was part of Alpha Flight.
The
Yeah.
Canadian Avengers,
Yep.
wasn't it? Yeah, Alpha Flight.
Mm-hmm.
But he can't fly.
Have we run out of things to say about Dazzler already?
Oh, we need to talk about that, don't we?
I mean,
So her superpower was lights. That was
Yeah.
her superpower. Was like bling.
I mean, it's no jackhammer that can start earthquakes.
Well, as you said, it was created as hoping to be something other than a comic book, right? I mean,
Yes, for the
and so
exactly
they
the
didn't really
purpose of
probably
yeah.
put forth too much effort in the backstory or the strength of the character's longevity.
No.
Was there ever a ROM Space Knight treatment?
That would
Yes.
have been great.
There was.
Yes, there was. I know for a fact there was. I don't remember how long ago it was, but I mean, we've talked about this on the show before, and I've definitely talked to Nathan about it. It's like anything you can think of, somebody has tried to make a movie out of it, no matter
They
what
should
it was.
resurrect that, man.
I mean, they
That was
still
a
do
great
it.
comic.
And it could be so like tongue in cheek now too, because they could use the same aesthetic, the same design, and it would be kind of hokey now,
Mhm.
but it would be also very endearing and good.
And that was a badass look.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I don't know.
Now, I don't know what held it up. Maybe it's just like anything else. It just couldn't find anybody interested or couldn't find the money to do it, or it was just,
Well, Marvel always had difficulty launching projects in terms of film
oh, yeah.
after this.
Well, yeah, and especially after this, I mean, the comics were all over the place.
I mean, we talk about Howard the Duck, but that ironically might have been their most successful film venture throughout the 80s.
and then all it took
Yeah.
was
I mean,
Gutter to come in and make an Iron Man movie.
The Favs.
Yep.
Well, they did The Punisher was great. The Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie. I love that.
It
But
was
Was
pretty good,
that
but it
one-
was
They
such
had
a,
that deal
just a, it was an action movie. Like it wasn't
I was going to say,
Right.
was it even necessarily comic
right, yeah, it
related?
wasn't like Marvel.
no, it's like we just talked about. They didn't really adapt it. They just kind of took the concept and made a film out of it. But they had owned New World Pictures. This is post Corman,
mhm.
and that was one of the films that they did. And of course, they did the TV movies, The Trial of the Incredible Hulk and Death of the Incredible Hulk. Was there another one? I think there might have been a third one. At that point, New World was going belly up. And so they just never had luck. So when the Corman project came along, it actually seemed like a viable option for them because
They would try anything to. Marvel was facing bankruptcy, also. They would try anything just to get some kind of money coming in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at Menachem Golan's Captain America movie, which.
This is the same Marvel team that came up with the storyline where Ghost Rider teams up with Jesus. You remember that? After Howard the Duck, they sold all the rights to everybody that they could get anybody to buy.
Oh, Canon. They had deals for Spider-Man. It was going to be Michael Dudikoff movie.
Yeah.
They were going to do that. And of course, there was another one. I think that Captain America started at Canon. And I think there was a third movie that they were going to try to do with them. Of course, Canon had financial difficulties. So
Yes.
they never landed with like a proper studio. I don't know what the intention was. And also, and I think we've mentioned this before, it's kind of a sidebar, but the Doomed documentary is
Yes.
brilliant if you ever get a chance to see it. And it's very good.
The one about the making of the Fantastic
like
Four
there's
movie.
movies coming out now, like documentaries that are better than the source material, like the Troll 2 one and
Yeah.
Doomed. And shit, to an extent, even overnight, the Boondock Saints one that came out in the 90s.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'm not a huge fan of the movie, but that documentary is brilliant. But no, like the Dune thing gets into all the politics and answers all those questions the best of its ability. As far as like, why did this even happen? Was it a tax write-off? Was it basically it's just politics is what it was. Yeah, it's definitely worthwhile.
It backed up everything I'd ever heard about how that movie was made and why.
Yeah.
Which were just rumors to me before that. Like watching that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, fills in the blanks.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. There should be a documentary on the Dazzler treatment. Or not.
I think we've tried one here and it's...
Then we started talking about all the other more successful movies that failed.
Well, every one of the side characters that they have in this thing, as far as the Marvel characters, have had movies made, except for Dazzler. We've had Spider-Man, we've had Iron Man, we've had Scarlet Witch.
Dread Knights?
The Stompers?
Dread Knights had a movie?
There was no Stompers movie.
I was talking about just the Marvel guys.
What's that one with Russell Crowe?
Oh,
that's different.
American
Romper
History
Stomper?
X.
That was a very different movie.
No.
I mean, it's not been too long ago that there have been Dazzler comics. It's not like the character's completely gone totally.
Right.
Did Dazzler die with Disco? Or did her comic...
I think it had more of a research. It did better in the 80s, it seemed.
Yeah, it was regularly selling, like I said, I think 160,000 copies a month after 1981.
Did Jubilee replace her eventually? Like, in a roundabout way?
I do not know. I don't.
Because Jubilee kind of has that same
I haven't kept track of it that
but...
close.
Well, no, because they've both been in things together.
I've lost track of comics by then.
Question for the ages, I guess.
What age?
Well, that's sort of the problem with comics, too, is that as far as the comic books goes,
47.
They really haven't developed any more of an audience than they had in the 70s and 80s. The people who buy comics now are the same people who bought them then. They haven't really brought in a new comic book.
Because those people never had kids because they weren't having sex. They were reading comics.
Good point.
The odds that we'll get a Dazzler movie one day seem pretty small at this point.
I'm okay with that. I am really interested in a ROM Space Knight now. Even an animated. How cool
Dazzler would have been cool.
An animated one.
Well, there's not ROM Space Knight, but they supposedly are working on a Moon Knight series.
Oh, well, yeah.
So, I mean, anything can happen.
Well, Moon Knight has had a really big resurgence. He's
still not a popular character,
very popular now. I mean,
he's not a Captain America.
Well,
I like Moon Knight, but I'm just saying... Yeah, but I'm just saying nobody ever thought we'd get a Guardians of the Galaxy movie either. And look at how well that did. So if there's going to be a time for your random characters that you wouldn't think would get something like that, now is the time. That's what I was...
say that about Iron Man. Who thought that they would never do a movie for that? Yeah.
Until it happened.
Yeah.
So who knows?
And it only took them fucking up Spider-Man a bunch of times.
I don't know. The second Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, the Sam Raimi one, is still one of the best comic book movies.
For me.
The one with Doc Ock.
He's more of a Spider-Man 3 kind of guy.
Yeah, because there's dancing.
Because there has to be somebody.
That would have been a prime cameo for Dazzler there.
It was funny because they referenced that in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and it was really funny.
That was a good Spider-Man movie.
I prefer Nicholas Hammond.
Nicholas Hammond instead of webbing, he fires like giant nylon ropes.
He just climbs buildings. That's all he does. Because, if you think about it, he would have been the chosen Spider-Man, I'm guessing, because they don't name an actor for it. Even though by that point, I think the show was already done.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go watch my tapes of Spider-Man.
I'm kind of upset there's no Red Brown Captain America in this treatment. I mean, it says Avengers, but it's not distinct.
Or even Red Green.
Good Lord.
Say what?
And they can premiere it on PBS.
Yes, we'll put the Dazzler treatment into a forever time capsule. So maybe future generations can figure out what the hell happened here. Anyway.
Because we could.
No. And with that, we'll bring the episode to a close. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.
Well, that's it. The show and Series 2 have come to a close. We'll see you back here soon for all new episodes in Series 3, coming soon. The Smooth Thrills Radio Hour is a production of Ghostcraft and is recorded live in Dallas, Texas. Please email your questions and comments to autopilot at smoochthrillsradiohour.com. Enjoy the rest of your day.